All right, guess who's back? It's the bye week. New year, new show almost. I'm Connor Kirst.
I'm Jeremy Swartout.
And today we're joined by special guests from WGR 550, Nate Geary.
Hi, how are you? How you fellas doing?
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
So,
Well, since I talked about sports, so I might be
It has been a while.
on my news.
It's the off-season, fellas. It's the off-season.
we've been doing this show called The Slapping, about the NBC show The Slap. I don't know if you
I have seen the trailer for The Slap. It's a very unfortunate show.
It's not good.
It's terrible.
The
But
trailer wasn't
our,
good.
Our show is wonderful.
Well,
it's wonderful. Definitely check that out. We'll put a link in the description of this YouTube video as well.
Beautiful.
All right, so we're going to talk some Bills, and we're just going to do like a recap of the offseason. So why don't we start off with Rex Ryan? So Rex Ryan got hired as the Bills coach. Seems like forever ago right now.
Yeah.
It does. I feel like it seems forever ago that Doug Marrone all of a sudden up and left.
That's true, too, yeah.
I was kind of mad about that. Like, it seemed like once...
He gave up on the team, I thought.
Salty.
Once, I can't even remember the quarterback's name.
Orton. Yeah, I mean,
Orton,
there's nothing to remember.
Yeah. Once he said he was retiring, Doug Marrone's like, I give up, because I think he just didn't want to put in the work to make the team what it needs to be.
I think a lot of it had to do, too, with the problems that he saw coming in ownership. I think ownership really wanted to go another direction, and I think he thought that there were greener pastures. And I'll tell you what, being the offensive line and he's not even the offensive coordinator in Jacksonville. He's the assistant head coach, which is really just a glorified water boy. You know what I mean? He's not doing a whole lot in the offense. To be honest, Hackett's really above him now as the quarterback's coach. Yeah, I mean, both of them, to be honest, aren't good.
I thought Marrone he's an okay coach, I think, but like his specialty was supposed to be offensive line.
Yeah,
and the Bills' offensive line was awful.
It was honestly the worst part of our team for a coach whose specialty was supposed to be offensive line.
I mean, part of that's talent, but
you're right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, totally.
I don't think he really tried to be risky ever, really. It seemed like a lot of times the games were very conservative, in my opinion.
I agree completely. Like, fourth down, I think if it's 4th and 1, if you're anywhere past the opponent's 40-yard line, you should be going for it.
That, and I also think some of the third down play calling was unbelievable at times, where it would be 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, and you have them throwing all go routes.
Exactly.
When you need a 2 or 3 yard play and you go for the home run, where is that on 2nd and short? Where is that on 1st and 10? It's not there, so they wait until 3rd and 1 and they go for a play that has a 15% chance of working instead of a high percentage play. You know, I think there was a lot of weaknesses in especially Hackett's game plan. But towards the end, a lot of people are under the impression towards the end Marrone had quite a bit of say over what was being called and what was, I think there are a lot of which a lot of people made the argument, should Hackett stay as the offensive coordinator? Should he get another opportunity to actually coach the offense? So
I didn't think so from what I saw. I think Greg Roman's going to be
I think Greg Roman for the people we have is almost an ideal fit.
I think he should be pretty good.
Yeah, and I mean not only Greg Roman, but starting from the top, I think Rex Ryan. You have a coach who not only has the respect of almost every player around the league. You know,
I would think so.
You would have to think so. You hear quotes from players all the time. Charles Clay on WGR this morning talked about how players that hadn't even played for Rex Ryan told him, if you get a chance to play for Rex Ryan, you have to play for Rex Ryan. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we have someone who demands the respect and the attention of players around the league, that's like a first for us.
And everywhere he's been, the players seem to absolutely
gravitate towards him. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and even there was the interview at the GM and the owners' meetings in Arizona the other day. Ryan had the opportunity to throw a lot of people in the Jets organization under the bus, including players, including John Idzik, his former GM. And it's a Rex Ryan thing. He took the high road. You know, he took the blame. Mm-hmm. He didn't put any blame on Idzik, which, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to see that Idzik tore that team down from the team that it was in 2009 and 2010.
Exactly.
And right when Idzik took over, you saw a decrease in not only talent, but who they were bringing in. It just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
You go from Darrell Revis to D. Milliner.
I mean, I thought D. Milliner was going to be good coming out of college.
A lot of people did.
He's
been a giant disappointment. Giant disappointment.
I feel like recently, just in the NFL in general, a lot of kids who come from college into the NFL, like there's a lot of kids who you think are going to have a lot of potential, and they end up not even showing in the NFL at all.
A lot of that too has to do with scheme and how they fit into the offense or defense that they're going into, and who's around them. You know, E.J. Manuel, if he comes into a different situation where he doesn't have to start right away.
And it was supposed to be that.
Yeah, you're right. It was supposed to be that, but they didn't plan accordingly. You can't have, a guy in Kevin Cobb who has a history of not being able to stay healthy. You have that as your emergency. I mean, that Kevin Cobb should have been a guy like Tyrod Taylor who's competing for the job, but you should have had another veteran that you could have counted on. That's just another thing with the Marrone era that you just really look back on and you just shake your head. He really, from day one, messed up the quarterback situation.
I think so, especially this past year.
Oh, this past year he played it. You know what though? I give him credit because he did what Rex Ryan didn't do, and that was make the change early enough to where it would make it a positive effect in the season.
Oh yeah.
Rex Ryan waited way too long to start Michael Vick.
That is true.
You know what I mean? And by the time that he had made the change at quarterback, it was too late. It was either Michael Vick needed to come in there and win 6 in a row, and that's just not realistic to ask of Michael Vick at this point in his career. At this point of his career, it's not a realistic thing to ask from him. So again, there's a lot of downs, but the up of that part, I would say, is Marrone, taking the bull by the horns and cutting the E.J. Manuel tie, which I think was needed after the Houston game.
I really think too with E.J. was like the hype. Like, Buffalo is an easily hyped city.
Yeah,
they get so hyped about the Bills before knowing if anybody's even good at football. Like, you could have the worst team. If someone tells Buffalo that it's the best team ever, they're hyped instantly and believe you. And I think EJ was hyped to the point where when he finally, was starting and, the season started, that you'd have to imagine he's carrying the weight of Buffalo on his shoulders because everybody's expecting so much greatness out of him already, and they haven't even seen him play. Especially
with quarterbacks, every single quarterback we've drafted, J.P. Lossman, he was the same way. Everyone assumed he would just be a star quarterback. Yeah. Even Drew Bledsoe when he came in, he was really good the first year. But beyond that, people thought he was still going to keep that up.
Yeah, before that injury, he was our saving grace. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Before Adrian Wilson hit him on the chin, he was our franchise quarterback.
Yep. Then it goes away just like that.
Just like that.
Fitz, 5 games in a row.
5 games, pay him $30 million, and then 2 games later, he's the laughing stock of our team.
Playing with broken ribs.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that expectation is unfair to EJ.
Oh, yeah.
He should have never been a first-round pick.
No. He was projected the 4th round.
He was a projected 4th-round draft pick. In a draft class, looking back now, 2 years down the road, you can look back and say that draft class, quarterback-wise, was one of the more disappointing, especially in the last 10 years.
I'm just glad we didn't get Ryan Nassib, who hasn't played at all.
Nassib,
you were saying we should have gone to 8th overall.
And, I guess that's the part you have to give the Bills credit for, is they identified the guy they wanted. Mm-hmm. E.J. Manuel's our guy. We think he has the best potential out of all the quarterbacks. You know what, though?
They might be right.
And I think they are right. I think that in this time right now, if you look, Glennon, maybe.
Yeah, he's okay.
He's a serviceable backup. Mm-hmm. Whereas E.J., I think at least you can see the talents there, the drive, the willingness. It's there. But again, he shouldn't have been picked in the first round. And
second round would have been better.
Second round, but you have to at least give the Bills credit where they realize that he isn't a guy that you can take at the 8th pick. They needed to trade back.
That's true.
And you got value. You got Kiko Alonso out of that. You got Robert Woods out of that. Whichever one they ended up taking that second round pick to move back. Obviously Kiko turns into LaShawn McCoy. So at this point, Kiko is even more valuable than just Kiko. He's turned us into a team who now has a top 3 rusher in the league. But again, kind of going back to the E.J. Manuel point, the Bills were forced to take a quarterback.
We needed one.
Not only did they need one, it's a new regime.
Yep.
It's a new GM. Unfortunately, the talent in that pool wasn't there, but if they didn't take a quarterback.
It would have been disaster. We would have been looking at. I don't know. Did we have Thad Lewis at that point?
At that point, we did not have Thad Lewis. Thad Lewis was signed.
Would be Jeff Toole.
Jeff Toole or Cobb. Or at that point, it should have been. That's what I'm saying about before, is you need to have 2 or 3 veterans in the camp.
Exactly. This year, I think we do. We trade for Matt Castle.
I liked what we did this year.
We still have EJ, who's more experienced. He might be better this year. You never know.
I honestly think with EJ, I think if we have a stronger offensive line, I think he's a kind of quarterback who needs a lot of time in the pocket to think.
That'd be big for him this year.
Make big plays, where he's not like I don't think he's like a super quick quarterback. He needs the time.
Processing.
Yeah.
Processing information is, at that level, is going to be the most difficult thing to do for a quarterback.
Absolutely.
And if you look at like Brady or Manning, they have so much pocket time. They have so much time to really scan the field, where if you give a quarterback like EJ, who is like a quarterback who will throw bombs and go on a
he has the arm
game,
strength. He has the arm strength. It's there.
And mobility, too.
And mobility.
Time.
I think how you make EJ Manuel most successful is moving the pocket. I don't think they have an offensive line at this point that can give EJ 3 to 4. And to be honest, I don't know if EJ is the kind of quarterback that can be successful in the pocket. He hasn't given anyone any evidence that him standing back there throwing the ball is the best way to have him playing. He is most successful when he's improvising. Johnny Manziel, a guy who can make plays, and I think some of his best plays were when everything broke down and he had to use his athleticism.
Yeah.
And I think when you ask him to sit back there and take a 3, 5, 7-step drop, read a defense, and make the throw, I think that's where you've seen him struggle the most. And it's all the work you can put in can only do so much. Tim Tebow, he has limitations. But again, he's the kind of quarterback, when things break down, he can make plays.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But is that the kind of guy you're going to invest in? You think can be your franchise quarterback? Probably not. But this team, 9-7 with very less than mediocre quarterback play. All you need is mediocre. You just need a guy who can throw 20 touchdowns, a 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, throw for 200 yards a game, maybe a touchdown here, touchdown there, but just don't turn the ball over. Don't make mistakes to put your team in jeopardy.
I think, I know he's kind of irrelevant now, but I think with the whole style that Rex Ryan wants to go with, like the whole ground and pound and things like that, I honestly think Thad Lewis would be a perfect quarterback for the team now. Honestly, if they want to go for like a running route and things like that, because if you're not going to go with passing plays that often, Thad Lewis is an awesome quarterback for being like an athletic, just like run the ball QB option kind of quarterback.
At the same time, though, we didn't trade up for Sammy Watkins, bring in Percy Harvin and Charles Clay.
To have Thad Lewis back there.
That's true.
That, and I think you have a better version of Thad Lewis already on a roster than Tyrod Taylor.
I like Tyrod Taylor.
I think he's not only faster, I think what is an underrated part of Tyrod's game is that he's been sitting behind Joe Flacco. He's been sitting behind a Super Bowl winning quarterback his whole career.
Yep.
Guys like that tend to have a better knowledge of the game and a step ahead of guys.
Well, that's like I argued last season. Remember when EJ was still playing? I told you guys they should just take him out. And remember, I was like, just take him out and let him sit on the bench for a while. That way he can kind of learn from someone else.
Right.
That's what it should have been from the start. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And to be honest, though, I think him learning from Kyle Orton, I understand that he probably learned a few things. There was a couple noticeable differences when Kyle took over, and they said it. Sammy Watkins said he demanded the respect of the people in the huddle, where EJ was almost a little too nice. He was a little too unwilling to say, "Hey,
said too.
exactly,
Yeah.
this is my huddle," and that's tough for a second year guy who hasn't earned the respect of his teammates to go in there and say, "Hey, this is my huddle.
Yeah.
This is how we're going to run this play. Ready, break." Where Kyle Orton is whether or not he's a journeyman and he's been successful in his career, he's been through it. So he can demand that respect. He can demand that attention from that offensive huddle that EJ just couldn't. So I guess in that theory, he did learn something from Orton. But But as far as mentoring, I don't know how well Orton really did with that. I don't think he was taking EJ aside.
Like, the thing about Kyle Orton is he has been on a lot of teams, and he has had some success. But at the same time, like, I don't know, just something about him. Like, he was going to retire. Right before he got signed by the Bills. He was out of football.
That says something.
He retired pretty much the day after the season.
Day or two after. Yeah.
I just question his commitment a little bit.
Oh yeah, I think that was Dallas's major issue. He wanted a lot of money for a guy who are you all in? And you can't, especially Dallas. They're paying Tony Romo a boatload of money, and
they're paying a lot of people.
And if he goes down, you need to have a guy is in there every day preparing to be a starter, even though he's not a starter.
And obviously, Kyle Orton was that guy.
I don't know that Kyle Orton's that guy. I'm going to tell you, I know that Kyle Orton's not the guy. Proof that he's at home on his couch with his kids now. He's not in the league anymore. You know what I mean? I think that's proof right there.
Yep. So, do you want to go on to Matt Castle?
Castle.
Bring in Matt Castle. So.
I actually wrote an article about Matt Castle. I did some digging on Matt Castle, and what I saw is a lot of highs and then some lows, and there wasn't a lot of in between.
That makes sense based on his career.
On his career, I mean, you go from 2008 when he took over for Tom Brady, basically after the first drive. What he did with that team is, I would say, incredible.
Pretty good, yeah. 11-5.
He came into camp, thinking what? You're behind Tom Brady. Yeah. In 2008, Tom Brady's still Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And that's after being behind Matt Leinart at USC.
Right. He hadn't played since, I think, 2005, 2004.
Yeah. You could be right, yeah.
And for him to come in, take over that. I mean, granted, he was throwing the ball to Randy Moss.
Yeah. But, he still did a really good job.
He did I thought, a great job that year. And what he kind of excelled in, he was younger then, but he had a lot of athletic ability. He was mobile. He was able to move around. He was sacked 47 times that year, the most in the league by far, by about 5 or 6 sacks. And he was still able to compile for himself a 10-5 record as the starter. He started 15 games.
That's pretty good for someone without
any offensive line. And he threw for 24 touchdowns to only 10 interceptions. So you have a guy who is, new to the game, so to speak, new to the NFL game, come in, and my favorite argument people tell me is, oh, well, anybody could throw, 24 touchdowns with Bill Belichick. And you know what I say is, Bill Belichick coaches the defensive side of the ball. Yeah. Tom Brady would be Tom Brady without Bill Belichick.
Well, I think it's like Tom Brady and then quarterback like Peyton Manning. They don't need a coach.
No.
It's all just we go out there and we tell the offense what's going on.
Think about the coaches that Peyton Manning has had in his career, other than I would say maybe Tony Dungy.
Yeah.
He's made those coaches successful.
Yeah.
Those coaches, Caldwell and
he won 2-14 without Peyton Manning.
Right. And he got fired. He got canned. Yep. Mm-hmm. So these that's one of my least favorite arguments people make is, he plays for Belichick. Belichick's maybe the best coach of all time, but he has nothing to do with the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
Nothing to do.
Close enough.
And he's a terrible drafter. He's one of the all-time worst terrible drafters.
Yep.
That
a lot of busts.
Jimmy Garoppolo, Brian Mallett. I mean, you draft quarterbacks.
I actually like Garoppolo.
Garoppolo to be... I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see about Garoppolo.
Hopefully it doesn't turn out.
But as far as Matt Castle goes, I think after that season, he got paid, as anybody who comes onto the scene like that and has a successful year and is a UFA the next season. He got paid by Kansas City. Had a pretty miserable first year in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm. Made the Pro Bowl in 2010.
Made the Pro Bowl the following year. That year, though, a lot of people don't remember that Jamal Charles tore his ACL that year. Was out for the season. Didn't have Jamal Charles. Maybe, you talk about top 3 running backs. He's probably right there.
Definitely.
3 or 4. Mm-hmm. So he loses him. And they still have Todd Haley as their head coach. I don't necessarily think he was the best fit as a head coach either.
And even the guys around him, like other than Jamal Charles.
Right. There's not a lot of talent there. Dwayne Bowe might have been there at that point. But then you go into the next season, and he's not only has a Pro Bowl season, He leads the league in almost he's top 10 in the league in almost every statistical passing category. He's top 3 in passer rating. He's 5th in the league in passing touchdowns. You know what I mean? That's not a fluke, because it's the second time. It's the second time he was able to kind of create that around him. Again, being the most sacked quarterback in the league. I think that had to have been something that had to go into them trading for Castle, is realizing, you know what, we may not have a great offensive line. We're going to need somebody who can sit in the barrel and throw a ball with a guy in his face.
And this is probably the best team he's been on.
Oh, I would say, I mean, even Rex Ryan, this is probably the most talented roster Rex Ryan's ever had.
I would agree with that.
And it's definitely the most talented roster Matt Castle's been on. I would say bar none. I don't really know.
I mean, you could argue
the Patriots
team, but
I guess. But again, they didn't have all that much. That year, you do have to get a lot of credit to Belichick in that year.
Yeah.
But obviously, a lot of that credit also has to go to Matt Castle.
You're actually sort of talking me into Matt Castle, but then I forgot about that Pro Bowl year was 5 years ago.
It was 5 years ago. You know, a lot of people tell me, "Oh man, you're talking me into Matt Castle," and I don't mean to talk anybody into Matt Castle. I think there's an open competition, and there's a 33% chance Tyrod Taylor could be the starter, 33% chance that EJ could be the starter, and a 33% chance that Castle can be the starter. To me, it's not about talent, because if it's about talent, Tyrod Taylor's probably your starter, just raw talent. But I think what it comes down to now is experience and confidence.
I think Matt Castle is going to be.
I think Matt Castle gives our coaching staff the most confidence to carry out what they need him to do. They've seen him do it before. You know, you know what? He may not have been playing last year very much, or the year before. He won that starting job last year in Minnesota. He won the starting job before he broke his foot. Teddy Bridgewater is a good quarterback. He is going to be a very good top 15, top 12 quarterback in the league moving forward.
And he did beat him out. So
he beat him out fair and square. Now, yeah, he is a rookie quarterback, so you would hope that a veteran can beat him out.
Yeah.
But I mean, look where Teddy Bridgewater finished the season. He didn't have a great game against Buffalo, but we're a top 4 defense. Top 4 defense. He still played well enough for them to win the game.
That's true.
If it weren't for Chris Hogan, we're probably 8-8.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
yeah, that game went right down the wire.
Right down the wire. I mean, right up to that Chris Hogan catch and the Sammy Watkins touchdown. It was a hell of a catch. Yeah, I was front row for that one. I agree though. I think there's a lot to like about Castle, and there's also a lot to worry about. If he can stay healthy, I think he's the guy. Unless Tyrod Taylor really proves himself. He was the ACC Player of the Year.
He was a very good college quarterback.
He was a very good college quarterback. A lot of people don't give the ACC credit, which it's a basketball conference. But, you know, Florida State's still a good team. You know, North Carolina State always competes. Right, exactly. I mean, and Florida State probably has, I was looking at a couple mock drafts. They've got a couple guys. They'll have 3 or 4 guys in the second round, 2 or 3 in the third. You know, they're a deep team. Exactly. They're a deep team. You know, and you got the Dukes, the North Carolina. You know, those teams are whatever. You know, but the ACC still.
It means something, though.
It means something, absolutely. And I also think it means something that he's probably the fastest quarterback in the league.
Yeah.
He's definitely up there.
He's up there with Kaepernick. Him and Kaepernick, I would say 1A.
Yeah. I think, like, my big thing with the Bills this season, too, is, like, especially with Rex Ryan as the coach, I think the Bills are going to get spotlight for once. You know, like...
I think it's apparent already. I think that's already apparent.
Yeah, it's what I would say is, like, a team, like a name team, where, like, there's more than one name you know on that team, you know? Like, where you can call out people with talent. Like, I feel like our offense...
It's
like,
going to be
we've had the most people, I think, on our offense for a long time that we can rely on to make offensive plays, for sure.
And I think you look back, think about the past 4 or 5 years. Who our best players are. Stevie Johnson. C.J. Spiller. Yeah, good player.
Yeah, I think Stevie Johnson was another player that got hyped up a lot, but it wasn't as...
And C.J. Spiller, Fred Jackson, you know, guys like that. Now you look at it as, okay, those were our best players.
Mm-hmm.
Now you look at our best players just on the offensive side of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have, just from the off-season acquisitions, you have 3 or 4 guys who easily trump any of the quote-unquote best players we have.
At least LaShawn
By a long shot. By a long shot. Percy Harvin, I think, is just itching for a breakout season.
Mm-hmm.
He
wants to prove himself,
he absolutely wants to prove himself. Don't let the numbers fool you. His contract is 3 years. It's a 1-year deal. It's
It's
the cap numbers.
Right?
I think the cap numbers were something like $9.6 million in the second to third year. He'll never see that money. This is a prove-it contract for him. He's had struggles in New York. I mean, he didn't struggle in New York. He played fairly well when he got the opportunity.
I mean, based on that situation, though,
it was a tough situation. It was a tough situation. The year before, Seattle. What?
Well, he lost the whole season.
He lost that whole season. So
he played good in the Super Bowl.
He did. I mean, when he played, he was a stud.
Yeah.
Now,
I didn't think Seattle used him in a good
No,
way. Screen passes and then the jet sweeps.
He wants to be known as a receiver, not a gadget guy.
Yeah.
I think he's going to get the opportunity here, but I also think that they're going to want to use him on reverses, on bubble screens.
I think you got to mix it in.
He has to. He is too talented to not get the ball in his hands. However you have to get the ball in his hands, that's how you have to do it. He's going to want to play more outside receiver, and they're going to give him opportunities to do that. But, I mean, just kind of going back, it's crazy to me where you go from a team last year. You know, Sammy Watkins, for whatever people want to say, it was a mistake to trade up for a receiver. Sammy Watkins is the best receiver in that class. I know that Odell Beckham Jr. had a great season. Odell Beckham Jr. wasn't getting double-teamed every single play.
That's true.
That's right, immediately. Like, I don't remember what game it was, but Sammy Watkins, was catching balls left and right. The next game after that,
shut down,
doubled,
shut down, and it's and defenses aren't going to just throw 2 guys on Sammy Watkins. They're just going to rotate coverage over to him, and that's how you disguise. You know, that's how you confuse young quarterbacks, especially when they know we need the ball in Sammy Watkins' hands. But if you have double coverage over him, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he's Randy Moss. It doesn't matter if he's Jerry Rice. If you have 2 guys over him, you have to be very accurate in the way you throw, or you're going to make mistakes.
And with adding Percy Harvin and Charles Clay, you're going to see a lot less double coverage.
I think the guy that's primed most to break out, there's 2 guys who I think are going to have breakout seasons this year. One is Robert Woods. I really like Robert. Not a lot of people now are going to be thinking or talking about Robert. I love that for him. I love that he's going to be the underdog. I love that. I think he eats that up. The other guy who I think I'm probably most excited for is Marquise Gray. I think he's an under the radar. I think he is one of the better athletes on our team. I think he's played receiver, running back, quarterback. He's played every position. He has
some fullback.
Right, exactly. So he has a very interesting skill set and outlook on how to play football. He now kind of comes into a position where, 2 weeks ago, he was our only tight end.
That's true.
This week, Charles Clay's in front of him. Mm-hmm. You have those 2 out there in 2 tight end sets. He is just as athletic as Charles Clay is. Mm-hmm. Get him the ball in space, and you see what he did last year?
Yeah,
2 plays. 2 plays. He both broke them for 40 or 50-yard plays. Mm-hmm. He's a guy who has big play potential. And now that we're going to be, and why I also think Hill's going to break out is if you look at guys, the H-back, the second tight end in Greg Roman's offense, Delaney Walker.
Really good player.
Greg Roman got Delaney Walker paid big time.
He's playing really well.
He's well, but he's not, to me, he's not a number 1 tight end, but he's your perfect scat H-back guy who creates mismatches everywhere because you can't cover him with a corner. He's too slow. Linebackers are too slow to cover him.
Exactly.
Corners aren't physical enough to cover him. And safeties, they're kind of in the middle. I guess that's really your best bet is throwing a safety on him. But Marquise Gray, to me, is a guy that you could see really flourish in this offense.
And no one's going to be thinking about him.
No one.
Because there's way too many
There's too many other guys you have to concern yourself with, which I think for defensive coaches, especially in the AFC East, too.
It's going to be a nightmare.
It's going to be a nightmare. And I'm sorry, I think my personal prediction is that Miami's going to be the worst team in the division.
I like them getting Sue.
I love it. I think it was a good signing.
But they need so many other players in that defense.
So many other players. Not only do they need so many other players, just to sign Sue, they had to release their 2 starting linebackers. Now, numbers-wise, they didn't have great seasons. Wheeler and Ellerby.
They traded him for.
They traded Ellerby for Kenny Stills. So I got not a bad trade, but I'm sorry. But if you're expecting Kenny Stills to take Mike Wallace's position, you have a significant step back, though.
It is, yeah.
Mike Wallace is not a number 1 receiver. He's a number 2 receiver, a good one. Mm-hmm. But I don't think Kenny Stills is a 1 or 2. I think he's a good 3. But they now have, to me, 3 number 3 wide receivers. They don't even have
Jarvis
a number.
Landry, but
I think he's a perfect slot number 3.
Yeah.
He's not a number 2. He's not a number 1.
That defense is just going to be, other than Sue,
their defensive line rivals the Bills' defensive line. I'm
forgetting about Cameron Wake. He's really
their
good.
Starting linebacker is Kelvin Shepard.
As Bills fans, we know Kelvin Shepard is not a good player.
I mean, you got to get. I'm not going to say he's not a good player, but the fact that we finagled Jerry Hughes out of him blows my mind.
That's amazing. Yeah,
blows my mind. But he's their starting linebacker. They have no defensive backs other.
Brent Grimes is good.
Brent Grimes is good, but they lost Cortland Finnegan.
Yep.
And honestly, their safety play leaves a lot to be desired. Louis Delmas, okay. All right.
He re-signed with them?
He re-signed. Okay. He's okay.
Yeah.
But to me, they could have used that $100 million on 5 players and significantly upgraded their defense. Where now, you're going to create matchup nightmares against a lot of teams. A lot of teams aren't going to be able to block Sue and Cameron Wake. But if they break that first level, you've got nobody back there.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to have to.
They better hope. They better hope they have the kind of sack numbers the Bills had last year. Because if they don't, they will be the worst team in the AFC East.
I can see that happening.
I think it's weird too because I feel like the NFL, other than the exception of a couple teams, is going very defensive style playing.
And it's because the league is turning so offensive. Mm-hmm. And these coaches realize if you don't have a top 15 quarterback, the teams that have the top 15 quarterbacks aren't willing to give you their quarterback.
Yeah,
absolutely. Those guys are staying where they're staying unless, whatever foreseen circumstance. But these offenses are getting more potent. There's game plans. There's schemes that defenses aren't ready for. So how they can combat that is by getting bigger, stronger, faster on defense to match up with, to be honest, a lot of nightmare. Charles Clay is a matchup nightmare. Those kind of guys. Definitely. And I think we have assembled a group of 4 or 5 guys who are matchup nightmares. They don't necessarily have a specific position. If you look at our receivers, you could look at Percy and Robert Woods as both being a slot receiver. They could also be outside receivers.
Yep.
Charles Clay, he could play receiver, H-back, fullback, or tight end.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I really think the same about Marquise Gray as well. So you have a lot of versatile guys. I think Greg Roman is going to have a field day. I really do. If he doesn't, I'll coach him. I'd be happy to coach him.
I think it's exciting too with the Bills because like especially because last year how well our defense did because it was like the year before it was the Seahawks. Seahawks broke out as like a defensive team, and then for the Bills to kind of hop on that train, someone is making decisions behind the scenes that's like predicting how the entire NFL is going.
Right.
Which kind of gets me excited so that it makes me feel like all of their decisions now are because they know what's ahead already.
And it's such a fresh take because you're just so used to the Bills being behind the 8 ball. And from ownership down, Ralph, was the reason that we are here today. At the same time, there was a lot of faults to Ralph. He didn't spend the money in the right places, in the right coaches, in the right GMs. And now I just get this feeling with the Pagulas that, they may not know exactly what the hell they're doing. They're new to this. They're hockey people. They're not football people.
Yeah.
But they've put the right people. And that's what I admire the most of Pagula is in the hockey, He's not the Jerry Jones in either sport. He's not the guy making the decisions. He hires the right people. He hires the people he thinks are going to make the right decisions, and he lets them do it.
Yeah.
He doesn't interfere. And, other than, the Hard Knocks thing where he said, I just don't want to do Hard Knocks, that's fine. That's what you...
That's a good thing
right.
the Bills aren't
No,
doing.
I agree. And if that's how your owner wants to be heard, that's great. He lets Rex Ryan do what he thinks he needs to do. Rex Ryan knows how to win. He's been to 2 AFC championship games. He knows how to win. Terry Pegula realizes that. So he's going to empower Rex Ryan with resources that he's never had.
Yeah.
Never had the kind of resources that Terry Pegula is willing to give. So you trust that Rex Ryan and Doug Whaley and Russ Brandon. I don't necessarily trust Russ Brandon because I think he's had a lot to do with the people that have been here previously.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the power is out of his hands. I think a lot of the power is out of Doug Whaley's hands as well.
I think it's mostly Rex at this point.
Every move has a carbon copy of Rex Ryan to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. I think it's a great thing.
What was your favorite move of the offseason, would you say?
Favorite move? I guess I would have to say my favorite move is probably Percy Harvin. I love the McCoy move. When it first happened, I was certain it was a lie. I was certain that
that was hard to believe.
I was certain that someone was lying to me. But the Percy Harvin move, it just was unexpected. Even more than... Because after McCoy happened, you're thinking, all right, well, now we've got a legitimate running back. What's next? They didn't have to upgrade the receiver position. If you went into the season with Hoagie, Goodwin, Easley, Woods, and Watkins, I would say, hey, that's a good young receiving core. Yeah. I'm not going to blame you at all for not spending money there. But he had a guy that he basically had targeted when he came out of college. Mm-hmm. He knew he was available, and I think him and Percy really hit it off. Again, it goes back to Rex Ryan being a great player's coach.
And Percy Harvin, think about it, his value is as low as
as low as it's ever going to be. And I think
he's got to prove himself.
It's so smart. It's just such a smart, witty move by them, getting him while his value's down because they know, which is why he's on a quote unquote 1-year contract, is if he plays well, we won't be able to re-sign him. But that's okay.
Probably not.
But that's okay. He will have been here for a year. He will have. I think this team is primed. I think they're primed now more than ever.
What's your favorite move, Jeremy? For me, it's Percy.
For me, I know we kind of talked about it earlier. I thought the Matt Castle. I think that's a good idea. Maybe it's just because again, it's like the name game. Like it's having someone who has a name in the NFL
who's done it,
already.
who's been able to be successful.
And that's a low-risk move, too.
It is. It's super low risk. You swap a 5th and a 6th or whatever they did, and you get a player who, honestly, is probably the most primed to be your starting quarterback. For a 5th round?
Yeah.
Take it all day.
That's good, yeah.
Take it all day.
And then, and it's kind of a tie with, like, the whole, like, just hiring Rex Ryan.
I take that back.
Yeah,
Rex Ryan's my favorite move this season.
At first, being a Buffalo fan, I was obviously like, oh, dude, he coached the Jets. Screw him, kind of like thing, just because I don't like the Jets, because I'm a Bills fan.
Yeah.
But,
who likes the Jets?
But then when I saw, like, right away, he changed his tattoo to a Bills jersey.
I love that. That's funny.
The truck.
Like, just doing all of that stuff to kind of, like look how dedicated he is. Like, it was almost immediately he was on the Bills.
He realizes this is his last shot, and not only that, I think he realizes that he's in the best opportunity to date he's had.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone has had owners like the Pegulas. I just truly, I think they are one of a kind in what they want. And they are willing to spend whatever it takes to eventually get what they, and they think that Rex Ryan's the guy to do it. And who am I to tell them wrong? I think that Rex Ryan is definitely one of my, you could say is 1A for me as my favorite move. I always said I just hate Rex Ryan. I hated him. I hated everything he was about, his dumb press conferences, everything. I hated him. But I always said, if he was the Bills coach, I would absolutely love him.
It's sort of the same thing with like Tom Brady.
Yes, exactly. You hate Tom Brady, but if he throws on a Bills jersey, you say, "Wow, he looks great."
The only thing I would still probably have a problem with his personality.
Maybe a little bit, but then I think you'd still embrace him, though. I think
you would. Yeah, you'd have to. I know I would.
Which is hard to say as a Bills fan.
It is.
Yeah.
It most definitely is.
Do you guys have any moves you didn't like? For me personally, I'm just a little bit worried about the amount of money Charles Clay's getting. I think he's a great player and has the potential to be a great player. I don't know if he's a top 3-4 tight end like he's getting paid.
Yeah.
That's
$7-8 million a year. That's
it's an interesting point. I'd probably agree with you. I think that's a worrisome move. I think it's to me though. Clay was the guy that coming into the offseason they had targeted as this is the guy we want. And Rex Ryan's played him twice a year for the past
and the
2
Bills
years.
too.
And we do. We know what he can do. But we know what he can do with a fairly good quarterback. We don't know what he can do with someone who's not Ryan Tannehill. And Tannehill's not, a top 10 quarterback.
He's fine.
But he's serviceable. He's a guy who's going to, let me tell you, get a lot of money this season, offseason.
Yeah.
And that's just another thing about the Dolphins is how are you going to be able to pay Sue and Tannehill and still field the team?
I think Sue's contract is going way up.
Oh, it goes way up. And they couldn't pay him. And that's why they couldn't pay Clay. It's because of how much they dedicated towards Sue this season. It's going to be interesting. But I agree. I think the Rex Ryan move and the Percy Harvin move. But like you said, I definitely am worried about the Clay move. I think
he's a good player, though.
I think he's also going to get he's Ryan Tannehill's favorite target. I think not only do we get a better tight end, we take away
from the
Tannehill,
Dolphins,
we take away from the Dolphins. So to me, it's a win-win. It's a win-win. Not only do we get better, we make the Dolphins worse.
That's a good point.
So that's how I look at it. It's two-pronged.
All right, let's see. Do you have any thoughts about the Jets? About getting Davis?
I'll tell you what I love about the Jets actually is Chan Gailey. I think he is a great offensive coach. I don't think he's a good head coach. I think his offensive, the ability to call offensive plays. Now he has Fitzy there.
And he can hide a team.
He can hide. You're absolutely right. He can not only hide, but he knows how to use what he has.
Yep.
And I don't think their best opportunity is going to be if Ryan Fitzpatrick's their starting quarterback. I heard the other day I saw a funny tweet that basically the Jets owner Woody Johnson came out and said Geno's our guy. And I think I don't know how I feel about could be the dumbest thing that he said. And he also said that at this point he thinks Geno's far ahead of Marcus Mariota. I don't know where that comes from.
I forget that they're in their top 6 picks, so they can still get Mariota.
They could still get Mariota.
I would if I'm a Titans GM, fan, coach, whatever. I would sort of want Mariota too.
I agree. But also where I don't agree is that I think organizationally they're really interested and they're very, I guess, excited about Mettenberger, which I don't know what gives them.
That's weird.
I agree. I not only think that Mettenberger is vastly overrated as a quarterback.
Towards ACL last year.
Towards ACL. Do you realize that he was one of the worst passers in the SEC? Both years that he started his junior, especially his junior year. His junior year, he was at points god awful. But do you realize who was on his offensive side of the ball? Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Jeremy Hill. These guys are all
good NFL players.
Good to great NFL players that he couldn't do anything with.
That's true.
I mean, yes, he's in the SEC, great defenses.
Well,
but for a guy that you're going to throw your franchise at and say you're going to pass over a guy like Mariota, you better be damn certain that he is the guy.
Yeah. What did they take him in the 5th, 6th round last year? Something
like that. Yeah, I mean, they didn't invest a lot into him, but if moving forward they decide to go with him over Mariota.
Did he really show enough?
I don't think he's shown enough, but they weren't a good team. They also don't have good weapons. I mean, other than Delaney Walker.
Kendall Wright's pretty decent.
Kendall Wright's okay. He went, I mean, just from being a fantasy owner, he went 3 or 4 games without a catch last year. And then he would break out, have a great game, and then I'd play him, and then he'd have no catches.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they did have Charlie Whitehurst and Jake Locker back there too last season, but I don't know. The hype about Mettenberger is confusing to me. I just don't know what he's done to prove to anybody that he's any sort of ready to be the guy for a franchise.
I don't know. I think if Mariota doesn't go to the Jets, he's going Tennessee, I think.
I think a dark horse for Mariota could really be Washington.
I don't know if they're ready to give up on
I don't know that they are either, but I'm going to tell you what. Take a lot into the fact that Jay Gruden wasn't there when they drafted him.
That's true.
Take that into account because these guys, when you only have 2 or 3 years as a head coach to prove your worth, you want the guy that you want. He didn't draft RG3. Shanahan
and obviously he didn't have any confidence in him.
No, last year, heck no.
I thought that was a
bonehead move. That's the one thing you don't mess with the quarterback is his confidence and his.
None of those guys had confidence.
No, and I don't like Jay Gruden. I hate Washington. I hate their owner. I hate Washington. But they've got talent. I think RG3's and what I'm hoping for personally is that they do take Mariota and RG3 becomes available. I'd trade next year's first round pick for RG3.
I don't know if I'd trade a first rounder.
I don't know that you could get him for anything less than a first rounder. They traded 3 first round picks for him.
That's very true.
You know, I don't think you can pry him out of there.
I would like RG3 on the Bills.
The only
the
problem I have with RG3 is his playing style. I think with the way that defense is going now, it's going to be really hard for a player like him to play.
He's fragile. Style. He's slender. He's not a big guy.
I think he's very talented both.
He's an underrated thrower. I think people think that he just can't be a pocket passer. I think his rookie season, he had 4 or 5 interceptions, something like that. I mean, he had a great touchdown. He had like a 3 or 4 to 1 touchdown. Oh yeah, absolutely he was. So, we'll see. The draft coming up, there's going to be a lot of interesting hot takes on why someone isn't taken. So,
so for the Bills, I think we'd have to go offensive line second round, right?
You would hope. I've seen some Bryce Petty picks in some mock drafts. Personally, I think Rex Ryan loves Bryce Petty. I think if he's at 50...
I couldn't even tell you who Bryce Petty is.
Bryce Petty, Baylor quarterback.
Really?
I think he has one of the best arm talent in the draft, but he's coming from an offense that RG3 played in. And it just doesn't translate to the NFL. The spread in the shotgun 90% of the time. They want a guy who's used to being under center, taking the free.
I've seen some stuff about Brett Hundley, too, the quarterback from UCLA.
He's, to me, a more athletic version of E.J. Manuel. That's what I see in Brett Hundley, personally.
I kind of don't think the Bills should take a quarterback.
I don't think so either. Point. But if they value a guy, and that's where we've gotten as a franchise, which I'm excited to the fact that when we go into a draft, we're no longer picking out of necessity. We are picking the best available talent there.
And we don't have glaring holes, right?
No, you don't. And good teams don't draft players they need. They draft players they want.
Yep.
And you develop the players that you think fit best in your system, opposed to reaching for a guy because you need a quarterback, like we reach for EJ.
Yep.
And if you look in that second round, they did a great job in that second round. They didn't need a receiver at the time. They didn't necessarily need another linebacker at the time. But they took the 2 best available players they had ranked.
Yep.
And they both worked out very well for them.
I think the only way I would be okay with getting a quarterback is if we could find a quarterback who is aware, not as in scans the field aware, but aware of someone who can dodge getting hit. Yeah. Someone who can basically get away from being sacked on his own
just
without having
instincts.
Offensive line. Yeah, someone who can just like Brady. He can move out of the pocket, go to a new spot, and find comfortableness somewhere else away from being hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's probably one of his best qualities. He's not a mobile quarterback, but there's a thing called the dot, and that dot is where that quarterback sits in the pocket. He doesn't have to. He can move 1 step right, 1 step left. I think who else does that really was Drew Brees. Guys aren't mobile, but you get them off that spot, you can disrupt things. You can make problems for that. I mean that's Brady's biggest flaw. That's how you beat Brady. That's how the Giants beat Brady. They got him off of his spot. They made him move. And if he has to move more than 1 or 2 steps right or left, you win. You win that battle against Tom Brady.
I think a lot of times, too, Brady, what he does is he steps back so much farther than most quarterbacks. He'll pretty much full sprint 10 yards back and be like, I'll throw from here.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
He knows that if it comes to a situation where someone's running at him, he's going to have more time.
His offense has evolved to very. That's the one thing I admire about him, and not so much Josh McDaniels, because he's done this his whole career, with or without Josh McDaniels, Charlie Weiss, whoever was the offensive coordinator, is they're one of the only teams I've noticed that are just so willing. They are so comfortable with themselves. They're able to take what the defense gives them. The defense is going to give Edelman that 5-yard out every play. And you know what? Tom Brady doesn't give a damn. He will throw that out play every single play, 15 plays down the field until they score. A lot of teams aren't willing to do that. They're not patient enough. They're not comfortable with themselves enough to run what the defense gives you.
Even on a week-to-week basis, the Patriots are not afraid to change up their game plan.
They're not. You're right.
They ran all over the Colts.
You're right.
Twice
and what confused me the most is against us, they ran all over us with Stephen Ridley until he got hurt, Vereen, and then they go into that Jets game the next week, and then the Jets, they don't run at all. And I can say the same about the Jets. The Jets in that game ran all over the Patriots and then played us the next week and came out throwing with Geno Smith, and he had 4 picks in the first quarter. Like, what are you doing? And they were still in the game when he was throwing those picks. Just run the ball. You almost beat the Patriots the week before, running the ball down their throat, and then you come out with this game plan where you're throwing deep routes to your tight ends. It was just, I couldn't believe, that's the downfall. These guys overthink it. They outplay themselves because they're so concerned that the defense is going to pick up on something. Do what you do well. And I think the Jets and the Patriots, what they do well is, I'll say more of the Patriots. The Patriots are comfortable with themselves. Tom Brady on a week-to-week basis, for the most part, is going to take everything the defense gives him, and he's not going to force anything.
Exactly.
And I think that's why those first couple games where they struggled, they were forcing. He wasn't comfortable with the receivers he had.
No.
He got, after that slap in the face against Kansas City, he had to become comfortable. Gronk wasn't the same player he was at the beginning of the year. Week 4, week 5, week 6, Gronk started coming around. That team clicked. That team switched.
They utilized him so well against us, which was ridiculous. I remember pretty much every pass.
The infamous Duke Williams pass interference. They made us look very vulnerable. We couldn't get off the field. It was the one team we just could not get our defense off the field on third down. Could not.
I mean, like, at least to me, what it seemed like was that the Bills couldn't adapt at all to what they were doing. Which, I mean, I think Doug Marrone, one of his great things that he did coaching was, beforehand, I think he was good at being able to read how a team would play, and then the next week be able to adapt to them.
Change and adapt.
But he couldn't adapt during the game.
You're right. He was stuck during the game. And even when you go into halftime, you have to be a different team walking out that tunnel in the second half. And even if you're up by 2 or 3 scores, you can't go out there expecting to have the same success with the same game plan. It's a game. It literally is a game of 2 halves. It's the game within the game. And you're right. I think Doug Marrone really struggled with changing that and adapting to what the game called for. That was one of his biggest downfalls, for sure.
I don't think Rex Ryan is going to be that type of
I don't think so either.
No.
I don't think so.
Going back to that Jets game where Geno was throwing the 2 interceptions, he put in Michael Vick. They almost won that game.
They did. You're right. That second half, they made the adjustments. They said, let's bring the other guy in, and let's run to his strengths, which are read option plays. Get Percy Harvin involved. That kind of stuff. And I'll tell you what, if Eric Decker doesn't drop that touchdown pass, that obvious touchdown, that's a different ball game. Different ball game altogether.
All right, so, I guess that's going to take us to an end here. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, no problem. My pleasure.
Come on anytime you want.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.